everybody, good morning and welcome to Salt Live. Yes, we always shoot for 11 a.m. start time. We haven't made it, we get close sometimes, but we always say join us at 11, and usually it's a little bit after. So thanks for being patient. We actually have a whole new setup today. We've kind of changed our look, if you will. You might recall, if you've seen us before, I don't have the brick wall behind me. So we've actually switched our studios around a bit, and that's kind of fun. So you get to watch us in our brand new 2021 set for the year. Well, for a few weeks anyway. So, as always, with the new setup, we want to know if anything's going on your end. So if you have any audio or video trouble, let us know. Just type in the comments, and we try and fix things on the fly if we can. And also let us know who you are, where you're watching from, and we'd like to say hi and shout out to everybody. And if you ever have a comment on anything we're saying, go ahead and comment, because Aspen watches the comments on the Facebook, and so she'll let us know, and we'll have a dialogue if we want to. But anyway. Yes, so welcome to 2021. This is our first broadcast of the new year. I'm sure we all had big plans for 2020 that mostly got derailed in so many different ways. But let us know, what's one goal you have set for yourself? What's one thing you want to accomplish or make a part of your life or get out of your life? What's one goal for 2021 that you have set for yourself? So share with us in the comments if you've made any New Year's resolutions. This year I'm going to do this, or I'm going to stop doing this, or we're going to make this happen. Let us know what you have decided to make at least one goal for you this new year. And let's go on now. We're going to go ahead and jump into our section called Helping Hands. So, helping hands is how you make a difference, in the world and the world around you from your own home. And we've been doing this, I think, for about 9 months now, close on 9 months. And today's Helping Hands is a little different. I haven't asked for anything, while we've been doing this, because Miranda and I do it for fun. We enjoy doing it. It's a lot of fun for us to kick ideas around and then get together on Sabbath morning and share with you guys. Initially we did this because of COVID and churches shut down, and we just really enjoy doing it, and so we keep going, and so it's a lot of fun. But today's Helping Hands is just a request, because if you don't ask, you don't receive. So I'm just putting this out there. We shoot this on iPhones, and right now I'm using two 6S's, and those are getting pretty old and pretty dated. So if anybody has upgraded their iPhones to something new, and you have your old iPhone laying around and you want to make a donation to a good cause, we could use one or two new phones. And like I said, right now I'm running off two 6S's and an 8 Plus, and so anything, I guess 7 or above, it absolutely does not have to be the latest. Just we need to start replacing our 6S's, because pretty soon they'll be so old they won't work with the programming anymore. So again, just putting it out there, if someone happens to have one of those lying around and you didn't have anything really to do with it and you want to make a donation, we'll take it. Just let me know in the comments, or you can email me, or you can instant message us on Facebook, or even post on the Salt page, any way you like. Just putting it out there, because again, if you don't let people know what you need, then the need might not get filled because people don't know you have it. So that's our Helping Hands for today. And thank you in advance if anybody's sitting there thinking, oh, I think I could send them our phone. Thank you in advance. All right, let's go to the next section, which you're looking at on my desk here, a variety of things. And that's because I was not able to finish the video, Aspen's video last night, because my MacBook is about 8 to 10 years old now too, and it's having trouble processing and doing the video editing, which can be pretty heavy on a computer. But we're going to do it live today because Aspen so enjoys doing her things live. Not really. But we're going to do Aspen's object lesson live, and let's get going. And she has a new intro video, so that part I did finish. So here's Aspen's new intro video. So Joy, Miranda's sister, shared with us one of her goals for the new year. Work less hours. That's a good one. I like it. I'm actually on the other end. Work more hours. Work any hours. Work an hour. Yes, we're still, for anybody watching, I'm still unemployed looking for a job. So yeah, you can pass that on to your family and friends. Yes, so if you are from the 60s, and I am not, despite what you may be thinking, I am not from the 60s. I was too young to know what was going on. But there are many iconic things from the 60s. And if you are a child of the 60s, if you were brought up in the 60s, type in the comments what's some of the things that you remember that, oh, this was something the 60s had and I love it and I miss it. All kinds of things that came out. For instance, did you know that the Barbie doll, though it came out in 1959, the Barbie doll really took off in the 60s. So Barbie is about 60 years old. And let's see, what else? Banana bikes. So it's fun to say that today, and kids have no idea what a banana bike is, but I had one. So did my brother and sister. It's the kind of seat that it had. And, the 60s, the groovy, the keep on trucking, all that stuff, flower power. All of that is from the 60s. But something else that's kind of an icon from the 60s is the lava lamp. And let us know if you ever owned a lava lamp. I've actually had several in my life, and I kind of like them. They're kind of fun. But that's a very 60s thing, is a lava lamp. And if you haven't seen a lava lamp, it's this little bottle, funny shaped bottle, and it's got these big globs of something floating in liquid. And if it's off, it just all kind of sits at the bottom. And then when you turn the lava lamp on, it heats up those globs and they start floating to the top slowly, and then they'll drop back down to the bottom slowly, and they'll come back up to the top. And that's kind of the hypnotic, mesmerizing effect it has on you. And it's all under a light. It's pretty cool. So today we're going to show you how to make your own lava lamp at home using household ingredients. So I'm going to have Aspen come on over here and join me.
Hello.
And we did this actually yesterday too, and like I said, we'll finish that video and we'll get it up because it's a little bit more polished than what we have here. So here's how you make your own lava lamp. We have
Vinegar.
white vinegar. It doesn't have to be white vinegar. We have
Oil.
cheap vegetable oil.
Yeah.
You do not want to use Mommy's very expensive extra virgin olive oil.
Okay.
And we have
Baking soda.
baking soda, not powder, baking soda. Also,
Food coloring.
food coloring. We have green, orange or yellow,
Yellow.
and blue. And which one do you want to use?
Well, in the video yesterday we used blue, so maybe we should use green.
All right, we'll use green and see what that looks like. So you want to use just pretty much one color. If you start mixing the food colors, it turns to brown, but yeah. So and then we have a spoon and an empty
glass jar.
Yes, glass jar. All right, so I'm going to try and remember, what's the first thing we do?
You take the vinegar
We take vinegar.
and you fill the glass bowl up.
All right, so, 2/3 for the bowl. So the bowl is to keep the vinegar and the oil separate till you're ready to put them together. Okay. So, oh, wow. That's vinegar. I hate vinegar. All right, here we go. And Miranda loves to clean with vinegar. I have no idea why, but
It's very disinfecting.
yeah, I don't know. She does weird things. She cleans with vinegar. She uses Walmart bags to pack boxes. I don't understand. And then all the clothes she just throws in trash bags, not, like we go by, the boxes and fold them neatly and nicely. And no, she just throws them in trash bags.
It's efficient.
I'm actually giving her lots of material to work with when she's over there talking by herself here in a few minutes. She'll have all kinds of things to add to this conversation, I'm sure. All right, I have a thing of vinegar. Now what do I do?
Now you take your baking soda
Baking soda.
and you put heaping tablespoons
Heaping tablespoons.
into the glass jar.
And being that this box is almost empty, we're just going to pour it in. But yeah, normally it would be 2 heaping tablespoons is what you would use.
Yes.
But we're just going to pour it in because use the rest of it up.
That looks about the right way.
Yeah. Oh, there we go. And actually, the more baking soda you use, the longer the effect goes.
Oh.
So, all right. Now we have baking soda. Now what?
Now you take your food coloring
Food coloring.
and you put 3 or 4 drops into your
Spoon.
No.
Jar.
No.
Oil.
No. Vinegar.
Vinegar. We do 3 or 4. 1. Oh, that's a lot.
That's probably at least 2. That's probably good.
Okay.
And then you mix it up.
And we mix it up. Ooh, it's a nice green color.
Yeah,
Looks like green Jello.
it does. What flavor is green Jello?
Lime.
Are you sure?
No. Now I want green Jello.
Who
Oh
likes
man,
Jello?
still smell the vinegar. Ugh.
And now you take your oil
We're gonna take the oil.
and you put it into about up to this line.
All right, so we're gonna fill the jar about 3/4 of the way up. Again, using cheap vegetable oil.
Yes.
There we go. And now what happens?
Now you pour the vinegar into the oil.
Ah, here we go. This should be interesting.
Da da da.
Da-da-da.
And there you have
And there you have it. Cool.
it. Yep.
I hope you can see it.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Oh dear.
And I'm going to send Aspen for paper towels. It also turns into a volcano lava lamp.
It's the extra baking soda.
The extra baking soda, yes, yes. But see, this is science. Science is messy.
Yes.
It should be messy.
Yeah.
Yes,
It's not science if it's not messy.
that's right. Not bad.
Yeah. I like
All
that.
right. Again, I hope you can see it. It's really cool looking. I'm going to have Aspen bring the camera up close. How's that look? Can you see it good?
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. And again, we'll do the video. What we did in the video is we put a light underneath it and shown up, and it was really cool. But if you can see, the globs are going up and down, which is kind of cool. And so this one, we used obviously baking soda, oil, and vinegar. And that's just one way to do it. If you look online, there's also a way to do it with Alka-Seltzer. We're using a chemical reaction to make the stuff go up and down, up and down. A lava lamp uses a heat reaction, convection, and we'll talk about that in the video. But you can also do this with just oil and water and food coloring. Instead of a baking soda, then you use the Alka-Seltzer tablets. You drop those in, and it acts like the baking soda, and it makes it do this. But the baking soda actually works better. So the Alka-Seltzer, I watched those, and they work, and they're not bad, but using the baking soda actually gives you more of the effect, so that's kind of cool. So I'm going to send Aspen back over to the tech booth because we're going to go to Studio 2 here in a minute and talk to Miranda. But it was really cool how to do your lava lamp because the this spiritual allegories you can take out of the symbology of a lava lamp is really cool. If you imagine we're the globs and the liquid is the life around us, and all kinds of different stuff. But that's one way to look at it if you use the chemical reaction or the heat reaction. But Miranda actually came up with some more a different way that actually uses part of the science as well to make up some pretty cool ideas about how lava lamps can teach us about ourselves, life, and our relationship with God. So we're going to kick it over to our brand new Studio 2, where Miranda is waiting anxiously to refute many things I have said.
Yeah, well, I like how Brett kind of just fell into that, and I wasn't planning on saying anything about that, but since he managed to say that, and he managed to say, he asked what everyone's sort of New Year's.
She didn't turn her mic on. Actually, we didn't turn our mic on. It's our fault. I always turn the mics on, and
I'm technologically challenged.
there you go.
I'm the person who at church week after week would say, which button do I turn on? The red one. Which one? The red one. Yeah, we won't go over that again. But anyways, okay, we're starting over. Brett kind of fell into this unknowingly, I guess. Plus he also, first of all, he set me up. Well, he asked everyone to give their one thing, kind of their New Year's resolution for the year. I didn't used to make them. I do now on occasion. My one goal for this year, actually, and a good time, I guess, to start is now, was Proverbs 25:11. A word fitly spoken is like apples of gold in settings of silver. So I shall pass up this opportunity to refute anything that Brett said.
Isn't she nice?
Well, it's there's never a time like the present. We
That's
always
right.
want to put off doing good until tomorrow. The next
right.
time when it's going to be easier, and it never gets easier. It really doesn't. So, moving past.
Moving on.
Moving past, refuting, maybe tomorrow or something. But, yeah. Okay, so notice how when the globules shrank, that they then moved up. I'm going to compare that to when we start getting rid of the stuff of this world in our lives, whatever that stuff might be that's weighing us down, believing lies, for example, being prideful, not spending enough time in God's presence, basically, turning away the Holy Spirit, when He convicts us to do right and good things and such. That's when we kind of float and we rise as we get smaller or lighter of self. So when we start taking on more pride and more things of this world, whatever, doesn't even have to be physical things of this world, just emotional things and unspiritual things. That's when we get heavier and start sinking to the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Also, okay, so why don't the globs in the oil mix with the vinegar? Well, it depends on the force of the attraction between the molecules. And the molecules in the oil and the molecules in the vinegar are both more attracted to themselves than they are to the other one. And so therefore they will never mix up. No matter how much you shake them and how much you work on it, they will not mix together. And I'm going to call that pride. The more pride we have in our lives, the more attracted we are to ourselves, just like those globules are attracted to themselves, and they didn't mix with the other. And we can go through life, we can work and work and work, say on the small stuff, because pride has us focused on the small stuff. We can work and work and work on that. It doesn't matter how much we shake and rattle and roll, we are not getting combined in relationships, basically. It's not making our relationships with other people and such better, because pride just doesn't. Pride does not grow our relationships. It makes our relationships smaller and keeps us separated from other people. And
yeah, it was, and you'll hear this again when, like I said, we do the video, but I always kind of thought it was neat, like if we're the globs, in a lava lamp, the light bulb, provides light and heat, is the Holy Spirit, and as we get, warmed by the Holy Spirit and excited by the Holy Spirit, we rise, we become lighter. Because actually what's happening is those two liquids in the lava lamp, they're so close in density. I mean, they're very, very close, but the globules are a little bit denser than the liquid they're in. And so when they're cold, they're actually on the bottom because they're just slightly denser. But when the light bulb heats them up, the density reverses, and now the globules become less dense than the liquid they're in, and they rise. And when they get to the top of the lava lamp, they cool off just enough to make them more dense, and they fall to the bottom where they get reheated and they go back up. And so we were looking at it, how it was, the Holy Spirit lightens us and energizes us, and we rise.
Right, but also you said the globules are much the same density in the oil as in the vinegar. Mm-hmm. Well, that's very interesting because pride tells us lies that are very, very close to the truth. Very close
to the truth, yes.
Very close to the truth. And so it's kind of hard to tell the difference, and
they're so close. And that's how Satan works constantly. If you read the Bible all the way through, he's using 99% truth with little 1% lie to fool people and trap people. Did that with Jesus in the wilderness, and still does it today.
Right, and you guys did the chocolate milk thing, right?
We did not. So what was going to happen was I was going to make some chocolate milk right here, right now, but sadly.
He didn't. Okay, well, making chocolate milk was part of the experiment, though clearly it wasn't done, which is fine. But we all know how to make chocolate milk. Probably most of us have made chocolate milk because we like to drink it.
And if you've made chocolate milk, I want you to put in the comments, what did you use? Because did you use, everyone today, the Hershey's syrup? Or did you use, today, do you use Nesquik syrup? Are you a Hershey's or a Nesquik? But in my day, like when I was a kid, I remember when the liquids first came out because we had to use the powder. Mm-hmm. And it was Hershey's chocolate powder, and you just scooped it in your milk, you stirred it up. But the Hershey's chocolate powder and the Hershey's chocolate baking, I guess. There's a baking chocolate. And they were so similar, but they taste nothing the same. And I mistakenly once put in the Hershey's baking powder into my milk. Look, we are going to have an experiment. And it was not. It was 99% truth and 1% wrong, and it was nasty.
Yes, well, none of that, the baking powder just doesn't really even dissolve that well, does it? No. Yes, but the Nestle's powder is going to come with the stuff that helps it dissolve. Plus, it also has the sugar and all that kind of stuff added to it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, a science experiment that I am going to selflessly, perform on myself is making chocolate milk and drinking it while Miranda explains how spiritually enlightening this is.
First of all, I want to add that some of you, as Brett say, may argue whether or not Hershey's or Nestle's is the best. Just go to Whole Foods and buy the Whole Foods brand chocolate syrup because that is the best.
Pretty good,
now, clearly there might be some that's even better than that, but if you're going to go for Hershey's or Nestle's, just try something else.
Yeah.
So here we have the chocolate syrup molecules and the milk molecules are not more focused on each other themselves. They gladly intermingle with each other, and they don't create any globules or anything. It's all nice and smooth. And that is how our relationship with God is supposed to be. When he comes knocking at our door and he offers us chocolate syrup to add to our milk, we need to say, yes, let's do it. And then it'll mix in with our lives, and now you can't see the separation anymore. That is one, and that's what happens when Jesus comes to live inside of us. Now we are one with him. It's his actions in us. We're no longer tasting like plain old milk. He's made us chocolate milk, and that's so much yummier. It's sweeter, and everything than plain milk. And
not to get too sciencey, but the reason oil and vinegar won't mix and milk and syrup, chocolate syrup do mix, goes back to polarity. And so the electrons and neutrons in oil and vinegar are opposite, and so they repel each other. But the molecules, electrons in the chocolate syrup and the milk are attracted to each other, and they bond with each other, and that's why they mix up and become one.
Yeah, right, absolutely. And basically, for people who don't believe in God or aren't Christians, God repulses them.
Yeah.
You know, they don't want to listen to Christian music. They don't want to hear about it.
I saw once where C.S. Lewis said, in the end, everybody gets what they want.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he's talking about there's people who would just be miserable in heaven, and given the freedom of choice, they would just not go. But that's kind of the saying, if you're not inclined to that, I guess the Bible says that, spiritual people are inclined to spiritual things. It repulses you. And I think we're getting way off subject here, but you see that a lot in just culture today, where some Christians, just being Christian, end up getting a lot of, haters just because they're acting Christian.
Right.
And that just, really upsets somebody or ticks people off.
Yeah, and we're going to talk a little bit about that later on as well.
Yeah.
About how the things that Jesus did, while we consider them good things, so many people hated him for it. They didn't appreciate his good works at all.
Yeah.
And going back to what you said about, the lies that the devil tells us are so close to the truth that often it's hard for us to distinguish that.
Yeah.
So today, we're talking about that in Matthew chapter 23, and we start with verse 23.
Verse 23. But now, before we jump into that, we need to put out a special prayer request for Lisa Buller for her healing, because she uses Ovaltine in almond milk. So we need to pray for her that she is brought back into the light of chocolate milk.
Well, it would be also interesting to know she's using almond milk.
Yeah.
There are so many different kinds of milk out there. I mean, people are even using camel's milk these days, goat's milk, cow's milk, of course, and then the almond milk and the oat milk and the soy milk and the so what's your milk of choice as well?
That's
there's
true.
So many of them. Probably more of them than there would be brands of chocolate syrup to put in your.
And I jest. I've had Ovaltine too. It's not bad. I actually like Ovaltine when I was a kid. Not because I listened to Little Orphan Annie, but we used to get Ovaltine because I guess it's healthier too. But I don't even know what Ovaltine is. Like what it's made of.
I don't either. I don't think I ever had Ovaltine.
Lisa, do you know what Ovaltine is made of? If you do, let us know.
Yes. My mother raised us very healthy. We didn't have chocolate or Ovaltine.
My mother raised us very healthy because she switched from butter to margarine, and she used Hawaiian Punch because in the commercials it said vitamin C and minerals and vitamins. And I was growing up during that time in the house where the world came out with all these things that were really good for you that now they go, oh wait, this kills you quickly.
Yeah, it's true. Well, I shouldn't jest at Brett because a man has a constitution like none others. I mean, yeah. It's terribly unfair when his teeth aren't falling out of his head and he drinks, Yes.
Yes.
And, yeah. So.
On to the Bible.
Yes.
You were saying something about a Bible text, as I recall.
Yes, the Bible text that starts out with, and this is the chapter where Jesus is calling out the hypocrites. And I know a lot of you, it's so easy for us to think, I know I do it as well. You hear that word hypocrites, and you're like, well, we can think of a million people who are, but we are not in that group, and we are so thankful that we are not like them. Boy, oh boy, the moment that you say that and you realize, I'll just tell you my personal experience. I may have already, it was really short, but I had decided, probably several years ago by now, that I was not going to say that again. I decided I should not say, well, thank goodness. Well, what precipitates it is we go, well, I know that I do such and such, but thank goodness I'm not doing what they're doing over there. I decided I didn't want to say that. Well, it wasn't too long after that, of course, that it was morning devotion time for me, and I was in the middle of that, and it kind of kept popping into my head. I don't know why. I don't even remember what the situation, who the people were by now, but then it kept coming into my head, and I wanted to say in my head, of course, well, I know I do such and such, but thank goodness I'm not doing that like they are. And I'm like, no, not gonna. Finally, I just did. I said it in my head, and it was not a good thing, but it turned out good, because as soon as I had said that, in my head, all of a sudden, I could see like this closet door that had this sheet, curtain, whatever, hanging in front of it, and this hand reached out and pulled the curtain inside, and the depth of dark uckiness in that closet, I instantaneously knew that that's how horrible my heart was as a human. And first thing I said was, okay, you can close that now, because I cannot look at that anymore. So we are very, very blinded to what we really are. The depth of darkness and sin in our lives, we have no comprehension of it. It's not quite the temptation to say that like it was before, because God kind of pointed that out, and but there's plenty more where that comes from.
Yes, and we all kind of in one way or the other struggle with it.
Right. Notice what my New Year's goal for this year is. A word fitly spoken. It's like apples of gold and settings of silver. Clearly, we have a huge goal for the year.
Okay, that's right. That's right. Yeah. So, and it comes back to one of those things that, all have fallen short of the glory of God. We're all in the, same boat, as it were. And it really helps with, I guess, humility, if we keep in mind the idea that no matter what somebody else may have, downfalls or personality flaws or sins they've committed or whatever it is, we all really require the same amount of grace and forgiveness, because salvation is really not so much about the things you've done, where it's about your connection and release and surrender.
Right, it's about everything God has done
for you.
Us.
And He's done the same for everyone.
Yeah.
So we're all equal in that sense. And that really, if you can remind yourself of that, you'd be surprised how calming, or how it can smooth over, times where we have issues or problems with people. Because, we don't get to this place where we're superior, or we're right and they're wrong, or that it's just the kind of, I need is the same amount of love and grace as you do.
Yes, and it's a much more peaceful way to live.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're constantly looking at other people and picking apart their faults, and how can they believe that, and how stupid are they, and all that kind of stuff, focusing on that kind of stuff, that's not a very peaceful way to live. It's much more peaceful to accept that God loves them just as much as He loves us.
Mm-hmm.
And He wants them in heaven to walk down the streets of gold with Him just as much as He would like to do that with us.
Yeah.
So it's yeah. Well, we haven't even read the verse yet.
No, and while she reads the verse, I'm going to have Aspen angle this camera a little bit. So we have a fire going, and I want you to be able to see that, because it's cold and snowy outside here in Lincoln, Nebraska. And we built a fire for part of our new set, and you should be able to see it. So as Miranda reads, enjoy the warmth of the fire on your screen.
Yes, we're enjoying it.
We're enjoying it, yeah.
Yes. So verse 23 of Matthew 23 says, "Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you pay tithe of mint and anise and cumin, and have neglected the weightier matters of the law, justice, mercy, and faith. These you ought to have done without leaving the others undone." Mm-hmm. So Jesus said that He wanted them to live out the important things: justice, mercy, and faith. And those things are things that come from God. When we live those out, they are actually a protection to us, and they lead us in the way that God wants us to go. They're like, when we live out those things, they're like, it's as if gold coins drop from the treasuries of heaven and create a golden path ahead of us. And all those actions then meld together and create the golden path, created not by you, not by us, but now by God and His actions done through us. His justice, His mercy, and His faith. So I read a thought from the pulpit commentary, which I really liked, and I've expanded on a little bit on this verse. Many times there is no conscious hypocrisy, but a smallness of thinking and acting has shrunk our worlds down to only being able to see the gnat. Oops. Yeah. So we haven't quite got to that verse yet. But
that's really what you're talking about when Jesus said that to the Pharisees. You know, that's what happened to them. They were so focused on the law that they completely, blocked out the love, the whole reason for the law. And I think you could say to probably quite a few of them that it was not conscious. It was an unconscious thing. They were so wrapped up and steeped in the law and the minutiae of the law, that they could not see the lawgiver when he came, because their world had shrunk to that, just the law.
And their culture.
And their culture.
As well, helped take them there. So the next text, we're not done with the first one yet that we're talking about, but speaking of the gnat, he says, blind guides who strain out a gnat and swallow a camel. So this is where we have that their world shrinks down to not only being, to only being able to see the gnat. So when pride lives in our lives, it shrinks our worlds down to the little things in life. It keeps us focused on our own globules and
keeps us focused on, like, when we have problems with someone at church, or we have problems with someone at work or something, and when we focus on just the problem.
Right, we focus on just the problem. We're not focusing. Jesus wants us to focus on the justice, the mercy, and the faith, not necessarily the problem so much. Yes, sometimes that problem needs to be fixed, but maybe it's not what the other person needs to change. First of all, my heart needs to be changed to forgiveness of them. And then,
And understanding. Like I could tell you stories, as a teacher, how easy it would be, especially in high school and academy, to focus on whatever that problem student is, to focus on just, whatever their behavior that is irritating to you. And your whole relationship becomes about that one behavior. And that's, again, it's kind of the same thing where your world shrinks to that, and all you ever think about or see is that when it comes to that person, instead of seeing the bigger picture of, what's behind that action, what's behind that behavior, what's behind this person, and, this is also a child of God. Our world, gets smaller so we don't see those things. So when we start hyper-focus on those, what the problems are, that's another way, our vision and world shrinks down to we can't see the bigger picture.
Right, and it does not give us peace at all.
No.
It gives us a lot of unpeace and unrest in our souls. So, verse 24, blind guides who strain out a gnat and swallow a camel. So apparently the people were required to strain their water through a piece of fabric to strain out the smallest of things, like a gnat. And because a gnat was considered unclean, but in reality, the camel was unclean as well.
See, this is why they didn't have boarding schools in Jesus' day, because you could not do that in boarding school. I was talking with Aspen yesterday about Tang, I think it was, if you remember. Tang was one of the 60s. The astronauts drink Tang, and I think it was a form of endurance, because Tang really wasn't all that great. It was okay, but it was almost a requirement at Pisgah, where I went to high school, Mount Pisgah Academy. And the reason it was required is, like, if you went in the bathroom and you, blocked up the sink and you filled the sink with water, you wouldn't be able to see the bottom of the sink because the water was so rusty or brown. And it's probably going to kill us all at some point, because I guess it was the minerals in the water. And the only way you could really drink the water was to mix it with Tang. And I mean a lot of Tang. And that was where I got my appreciation for the space age astronaut drink Tang. But it's funny because that is one of the things they were focusing on. You had to strain all these things out, and I think back to when I was in Hawaii. I was working at a summer camp, and I actually used to be a bit of a germaphobe growing up. I was like OCD about it. I mean, bad. Like my parents wanted to, give me up for adoption bad. I was so germaphobic. It was really weird. And then I went to boarding school, and I was either, be non-germophobic or die, one of the two, because you could not do that in boarding school. But in Hawaii, it was interesting because the way we did cafeteria meals and wash the dishes, we had those metal trays, and we would take them outside, and there was these big wooden sinks, they actually wasn't even steel, so it was wooden sinks. And then we'd, set them out on these racks to dry outdoors, and you just get used to it. There's, flies and gnats all over, and you just, I guess you just don't think about it anymore, because, you get a fly would land on something, and you just whoosh, and then you keep eating. I can't see Aspen doing that. No.
Yep. So basically in this verse, Jesus was contrasting the trivial things with the magnitude of their actual sins. And so that's why he said that you blind guides who strain out the gnat and yet you swallow the camel.
Mm-hmm. Their sins of lack of mercy, not loving, not forgiving, those were the bigger sins.
Yeah, that's true, but we don't recognize those really, because when you look at the way we're used to living everyday life, and everyday life tells us, no, you don't have to forgive people who do that kind of stuff for you. You were right, you didn't deserve to be treated that way, and so you don't have to forgive them, and that's ordinary everyday living. Just like the Pharisees had with all of their little cultural things, So the problem is we get focused on straining out the gnats and on the small and important things in life that we don't always recognize and appreciate justice, mercy, and faith when they show up in our lives. Take, for example, the story of the woman caught in adultery. Jesus offered mercy not only to the woman, but he also offered mercy to the scribes and Pharisees who brought her in.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they were so focused on the law that she should be stoned that they couldn't see the mercy that they could have dealt out in this situation.
Yep.
And yet Jesus went ahead and offered mercy not only to her but to them as well. And I don't doubt that they recognized that he was offering them mercy.
Mm-hmm.
And they were certainly intelligent people, or they wouldn't have, been rulers of their country. Mm-hmm. And so they recognized that. And at that point in time, anyways, they turned and they walked away from it. They couldn't humble their hearts. Mm-hmm. They actually, no doubt, liked their position, liked their prideful ways, don't we all? Mm-hmm. And didn't want to give those up by recognizing that here was the Son of God. How could he be the Son of God no more than them when he was just a carpenter's son? Their families had gone back for generations and generations and generations and generations, and they could list them all off and tell people how important they were because, of their money and their hereditary backgrounds.
Position, yeah.
Yeah. So Jesus was not always appreciated for his mercy. And, his greatest act of mercy hanging on the cross was not really appreciated by anybody, for the most part, who was there. I mean, certainly his family and his friends and disciples and such were very sad. But basically the Bible points out three people who recognize him that day as the Son of God. The thief on the cross, the Roman centurion, and Simon of Cyrene. And to any Jewish crowd, who were those people to be recognized as having any truth at all, to listen to them?
I think it's a little bragging on Miranda here. She's just about done writing this book, and it's a fiction book, but it's based in Bible times, and it's kind of a spiritual journey of Bartrayman. I can't say it now.
Oh, I named the Roman centurion. I've just about finished with a book based on the those three people: the thief on the cross, the Roman centurion, and Simon of Cyrene. And I named the Roman centurion Bartramus.
Bartramus, that was it. Bartramus, and It's
It was an actual Roman name.
Yeah, it's very Roman, and it's a story of look at his experience back through his life, and the events that led him to where I won't spoil the book, but where she takes the character, right? And it's interesting to play with your imagination on what things took place, because in our lives we know it. It's not generally this one moment in life where there's this huge big decision. It's all these events that have led up to it that kind of prep us for the big decision. So the little choices we make along the way usually sets our personality and character up for the big choices. And it would be interesting just to imagine, either Betramus or the thief on the cross or something, having experienced or witnessed, the woman caught in adultery, him being one of the people in the crowd, either with a rock in their hand or just bystander and watching, and that happening, and the person drops a rock, goes home, and did they start reevaluating their life? Did it first time go, man, who is this guy? And then they see Jesus again doing healing or da-da-da, and then by the time he's on the cross with him, he knows this is the Son of God. And so there are things that Jesus did that in the story we read and go, oh, those jerks, Jesus showed them and they all went away, And I don't think it's that black and white or simple. I think some did that, but I also think some, really got hit in the gut with this was God and the Holy Spirit convicting them, and moving them in that direction of being able to surrender, being open and broken, and coming to Jesus. Because it's usually not just one event; it's events that God takes us through to get us ready for those moments.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So basically, here was Jesus there on the cross, offering,
which is her book, by the way. That's what I like. One of the things. Anyway, buy the book.
Which was Jesus was offering the world his greatest mercy ever. And the crowd couldn't see that. Mm-hmm. They could only see that their Messiah was going to come and destroy the Romans and sit on an earthly throne. That's all that they could see. They could not see the great truth that here was a Son of God dying to save them from their sins and their spiritual enemy, and to give them eternal life.
And we have to apologize for hammering something over and over again, and that would be pride. If I imagine if you went back and watched our videos, you could get to quite a high number of all the times, Miranda and I have said something about pride. But that was it for the Jews too. Their pride in themselves, the Jewish nation, the chosen of God, it was their pride in who they thought they were that blinded them to the bigger mission of Jesus, because pride said, this is our Messiah, and our Messiah destroys the Romans.
Yeah.
And that was much smaller than what Jesus was actually going to do.
Yes, much smaller.
But it was their pride that got them into that laser focus that they couldn't see beyond that.
Yeah, they in that situation, they strained out the gnat and swallowed the camel, because they couldn't recognize the truth. Yeah. And they focused on the small things.
Not the one hump camel. We're talking the 2 hump camel. This was
maybe
a big
there was
camel.
a 3 hump camel.
They were probably the category 3 camels.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, I interrupted there. Please continue. That was good.
Yeah. Here they strained out the gnat, swallowed the camel, and then Jesus says, Father, forgive them because they don't know what they're doing. Yeah. More mercy on the part of Jesus to those who have focused on the small stuff, dwarfing their ability to see the truth. Yeah. Jesus saw that, and in his great mercy, he offered them more mercy. So not being merciful doesn't always... Oh, no, being merciful doesn't always make us shiny and attractive on the outside. It's not always popular with the crowd. But the crowd that day at the crucifixion definitely strained out the gnat and swallowed the camel. We are the ones who are constantly trying to paint on the outside and shiny us up on the outside, just like they did. They were focusing on the small things and straining out the gnat and they also were weighing out the little tiny herbs and paying tithe on them, rather than focusing on the weightier matters of justice, mercy, and faith.
And I think, sometimes today, I'm not sure how prevalent it is today. I recognized it more when I was in high school, college, and even when I was first getting started in, being a pastor. That just as the Jews were so proud of them being the Jews, Adventists used to have this great, we're the chosen too, and we had this pride, I guess, quiet pride, but pride nonetheless. And that, we are the remnant, we are the chosen of God in the last days, and And I'm not, knocking that belief or anything, but it sometimes got to be the same thing where, well, we're the Adventists, and we have all the truth, and even to the point where there was a lot of jokes about people getting to heaven and they're saying, hey, who are those group of people over there, and Jesus going, oh, that's the Adventists. They think they're the only ones here. I don't know how prevalent that is today, but when I first got started, that was a big, people wouldn't come out and say it, but that's really kind of how some people lived, like, well, we are, and there's Christians in all faiths. There's Christians who aren't Christian. There's going to be people in heaven who never heard the name Jesus. And we have to watch ourselves not to get caught up in that. Well, I'm an Adventist.
Yeah, we were actually, Brett was a pastor at a church once, and it was actually a fair-sized church. It was certainly considered the most liberal church in the area.
Well,
and yet, eventually, there was a small group of people that felt that he must wear a suit and tie to church. Now, Brett would generally come in a sweater or a vest or sweater vest or something.
Vest. I like sweater vests.
But generally not a suit and tie. So, we can get focused on, it doesn't change his message. It doesn't change the message of what he's saying at all. But they couldn't get past that he wasn't wearing a suit and a tie.
And the church I was at before, it just blew my mind. I actually did wear a tie at the one in California at Carmichael. But there was a group of people who were upset because I didn't stand behind the podium. I would always come around and walk around the stage and come down on the floor. And they were like, you're supposed to stand behind the podium. Like, wow. You kind of totally missed the point there, but okay. Yeah.
So anyways, we focus on the minutia of stuff rather than, but anyway. Okay, so moving on to verses 25 and 26. Woe to you, scribes, and Pharisees and hypocrites, for you cleanse the outside of the cup and the dish, but the inside is full of extortion and self-indulgence. Blind Pharisee, first cleanse the inside of the cup and dish, that the outside may be clean also. Well, we can fool a lot of people by what we look like on the outside. But I tell you what, we cannot fool Jesus that we clean the inside, because he's the only one that can come inside and clean the inside. So we can fool people into believing that because the outside's unclean, so is our insides. But since God's the one who has to come in and clean us up, we can't fool him. We just can't.
I mean, think about people you've known over the last, 10, 20, 30 years, prominent people. And I know in the last 30 years or so, there's been, pastors who were the leaders of these amazing mega churches, and they have fallen from grace because of some secret sin they had that they kept hidden for so long, but it eventually came out. Eventually, they couldn't hide it anymore. And either an affair, homosexuality, or something, and all of a sudden, this great spiritual leader that everybody looked to, all of a sudden has this huge fall. And, on the one side, I think it's dangerous to lift someone up like that. The guy who leads the 10,000 member church and the guy who leads the 10 member church are both really doing the same work. And they're both on equal setting because they're both preaching, sharing, and living the gospel. And a bigger church doesn't make you a better pastor. I know that's how we tend to think. Bigger is better. It's actually one of the things I like about the way the Adventist church pays their pastors. because it's a little different than other denominations. In other denominations, the pay is based on membership, tithe, and that kind of thing, because most of their money stays at the local church. And so it pays to be a pastor of a very large church because you get a bigger paycheck. But in Adventism, it's not like that. It doesn't matter if you're the senior pastor at a college church or you're, doing a two-church district with only 20 people total. You get paid the same, and it's based on your education and years of service, not on the size of your church. And I think I've always kind of been, had a little bit of good pride about my church in that they treated it equal, because it is equal. And it's the same thing with these other guys who are leaders of these big mega churches. Yeah, they're doing something in front of a ton of people, but I've got Merle Bradley here. He's a teacher, been teaching how many years in elementary school, and what he does there with his classrooms is every bit as important as what Rick Warren does in his church. And it's coming back to, we are all on the same level. We are all in the same need of grace, love, and mercy. And that's not how the Jews or the Pharisees saw themselves.
Yeah, basically it's are we doing what God created us to do? And here in these verses he's talking about everyone was created to live out justice, mercy, and faith. And being a just person is really just living out mercy by faith. So anyways, only God can clean the insides, our insides, but the problem is we don't always like to give that control over to God. We'd rather keep those favorite little sins that we have hiding on the inside because we enjoy them, and we'd rather not give them up. And so we don't let him come inside to clean it up like he should, and we can generally apply a little elbow grease to the outside and manage to look pretty decent, while the inside is just a mess because of those little secret sins. Little secret sins can cause a big mess on the inside.
Yeah. Usually I do this in a classroom and I have a graphic, but I just now thought of it, and so I don't have the graphic. You'll have to imagine this in your mind. So if you can imagine, what is the most superficial part of who you are? What is the, at the top level, the thing that people would see first that, gives them an idea of the kind of person you are? And that would be our actions. It's the first thing people see. It's how we act, it's how we choose to dress, how we choose to do whatever. Our actions are the most superficial part of us. Just below the actions is how we feel. And feelings tend to control actions. So if I'm happy, I'll act happy. If I feel sad, I'll act sad. So feelings are a little bit deeper than actions, which is, in a lot of Hollywood movies, the romance movies, they're like, tell me how you feel. Let's talk about emotions, And just below feelings usually is thinking. How I think about something is how I will feel about it, is how I will act about it. For instance, if I think you did me wrong, I will feel upset and I will act angry. But then even deeper than thinking would be our perception. Our perception of some situation determines how we think about it, determines how we feel about it, determines how we act about it. And so if my perception is one way, and I have this classic story, that two men sitting in a doctor's office, and one is obviously the father of 3 children who are running around and being noisy, and the other is a guy dressed up nice in a suit, patiently waiting his turn to be called in, and he's trying to ignore the kids, but they're making a mess and running all over and being loud. And so his patience gets thin, and he says to the guy across, who it's obviously he's the father, he says, "Excuse me, sir, are these your children?" And the guy had never even looked up. He didn't even acknowledge that the guy had said anything. And now the kids are drooling on the guy's shoes and running the little race cars over him, and he's getting really upset. And he's angry now, and because he's thinking, this guy's blowing me off, he's not taking care of his kids, and he yells at the guy, "Excuse me, sir, are these your kids?" And the guy finally shakes his head and he looks up and he said, "I'm sorry, did you say something? They just told me my wife has cancer." And instantaneously, the other man's perception changed of the situation. And in a moment, his thinking, feeling, and actions all changed based on his perception. And so what Miranda's talking about here is if we work on the outside, our actions, the most superficial part of us, you'll never have lasting change. But in human nature, it tends to be where we focus the most. I'm going to do this or not do this. I'm going to work on the actions, when really it's the deeper level of perception that changes everything else, and also is the lasting change. And the perception is what we're talking about, where everyone's equal, everyone's a child of God, everyone is in the same need of mercy and grace. You know, the 10,000 church pastor versus the 10-person pastor are the same. It's the perception of life, of God, of people around us. When that changes, everything else changes, and that's the inside.
Right. It's like when Jesus hung on the cross and he said, Father, forgive them, because they don't know what they're doing. Yeah. So many times we get frustrated at people, like Brett talked about, and I was frustrated at people once.
Once, long time ago.
Yeah, yeah, no. So, but one time in particular, I was frustrated at some people, and you know, I didn't want to be frustrated at them. I wanted to forgive them, and yet, you know, I kind of had a conversation with Brett when, you know, he told me what was going on. I was like, oh, stupid people. How can people be so stupid? See, those are the words that we're not going to be speaking in the new year, because, you know, words fitly spoken are like apples of gold and settings of silver.
That's right.
Anyways.
Good apples.
But, you know, I was like, oh, people are so stupid. How can they do this? So, you know, since I wanted to feel forgiving towards them, not just, you know, grit my teeth about it. So I mentioned that to God, of course, and he pointed out to me, he's like, you know, look at my son who's hanging on the cross. What did he say? And he said, Father, forgive them because they don't know what they're doing. And right that moment it clicked. The people who don't know what they're doing are stupid people. Stupid people. And so it changed my outlook entirely, and it changed it instantaneously. God took away my unforgiveness towards them. And but he gave me a different perception of it.
And now we don't call them stupid. We call them foofer heads.
It works as well. I'll have to remember that word in the...
Foofer heads.
I'll be using that more often in the new year.
That.
Oh, is that a word fitly spoken?
Yes, a word rightly spoken in season.
Yes.
You foofer head.
Okay. Moving on to verse 27 and 28. You are like whitewashed tombs, which indeed appear beautifully outward, but inside are full of dead men's bones and all uncleanness. Even so, you also appear outwardly righteous to man, but inside you are full of hypocrisy and lawlessness. So basically, Jesus says that it's the dirt inside that causes our death, and we aren't really living, no matter how good we look on the outside, if we have all that dirt on the inside. And straining out the gnat and swallowing the camel is death to our souls, because it blinds us to the truth.
Mm-hmm. And it's like, I don't know if this is where this fits in or not, but the, you know, saying we have in recovery, you're only as sick as your secrets. It's back to that principle of things we hide inside ourselves. You know, things, the secret sin of things we keep hidden. You know, the flaws, the sins, the whatever we keep inside. As you know, things that we swallow, things that we keep inside, only get bigger and bigger and bigger. In fact, doctors tell you that when we swallow emotions and we don't deal with things and we keep it hidden and swallowed down inside of us, that those things eventually have a physical reaction to our body and can cause things like depression, heart problems, cancer, because of emotional issues that we just hold on to. And so when Jesus says, you know, it's death inside you, he knows what he's talking about, because, you know, it may not be like you get hit by a bus and die, but it's a little gradual, like cancer. It grows and eats and grows and eats inside until we are dead inside, emotionally, spiritually, and, you know, for many people it comes out in a physical sense as well. And so he's right on where, you are a whitewashed tomb. You look good on the outside, and you only have death growing in you on the inside.
Right, because if you have pride, you constantly have to lift yourself up and put other people down, that causes death to your emotional feelings towards them. You cannot put them down like that if you love them. That pride just squashes out love and kills it. So verse 29, 30, and 31, because you build the tombs of the prophets and adorn the monuments of the righteous, and say, if we had lived in the days of our fathers, we would not have been partakers with them in the blood of the prophets. Therefore, you are witnesses against yourself that you are sons of those who murdered the prophets. Basically, yeah, they back when, hundreds of years before when the prophets had been murdered, now they went ahead and built them all these, big fancy monuments and tombs to say, hey, you know what? If we were there, we would not have done that. Look, we're bringing honor to these people. And basically, what they were saying is, thank goodness we're not like they are or were. Thank goodness we're better than that. Look and see what we're doing here. We're building these tombs and these monuments to these people. But you know what I think? I think that is what the oil globules would say to the vinegar solution, is that thank goodness I'm not like you, because we're more attracted to ourselves and drawing away from the others. And so they don't mix because of that, and they pull away from each other. And that is not living out justice, mercy, and faith. That is straining out the gnat and swallowing the camel. And you say, well, you know what? You have no idea how they treated me. And yes, that's true. Jesus hung on the cross and said, Father, forgive them because they don't know what they're doing. Now, granted, there are situations when you shouldn't stay in close proximity to people who have hurt you. And there are times when life just moves on. You no longer live in the same area. Maybe they've passed away or whatever. But the point of this is not to strain out the gnat and swallow the camel. We are not to continue focusing on that year after year after year, what they did to me. That makes our world very, very small. What we're to do is forgive that situation, what they did to us. And now that opens our world and makes it so much bigger. And we are not to focus on what they did, but what Jesus has done for us. And what Jesus has given to us, which is justice, love, mercy, and faith. So, yeah. So to be honest with yourself, right now, just take a moment and reflect. Did you spend more time last year thinking and saying and posting on Facebook potentially things that said, I'm sure glad I'm not like them. What stupid people they are. And this last year with COVID and the whole mask and no mask thing, and now the whole pro-vaccination or anti-vaccination thing, and all the political stuff, it was an opportune time to pull away from others and be better than they. Or did you spend more of your time living out justice, mercy, and faith? And be honest about that. What took up more of your thoughts and your time this last year? See, being a just person is simply living mercy out by the faith of God. I challenge you this year to strain out fewer gnats and swallow fewer camels. And also to mix up more chocolate milk.
Definitely more chocolate milk. Without Ovaltine. Yeah, it's a good thing to think about, because as we think inside, as we feel inside, so goes our lives, So there you go. Think about that. I like that, as we go through 2021. It's a good thing. Another thing we do in recovery is to, at the end of the day, review the day. And where have I been, kind, where have I been unkind, where have I been forgiving, where have I been unforgiving, And the same thing, you could just, at the end of the day, where today did I really strain at gnats and swallow camels.
Yeah, I mean, we'd all like a lot more peace in the new year than most people had in this last year. And it's wise to consult justice, mercy, and peace and see what kind of wisdom that those gifts from God have for us.
Yeah.
How would they live out the truth of God in the situation that we're in?
Yeah. All right, so once again, Happy New Year. Welcome to 2021. Hopefully it will be at least different and better than the previous year. And we thank you for joining us. And if you're catching us after the broadcast, still, we always like to hear comments, just treat it like you're watching it live. And as we say stuff, go ahead and comment, because we come back and we read them, and we, like to get back with people. And congratulations, Merle, 30 plus years of teaching. Wow.
Wow.
That's pretty cool.
That must have required a lot of patience.
Lots of patience.
Lots of patience and plenty of wisdom in order to use that patience.
Yeah. Especially in elementary school. I admire you guys.
He taught more 7th and 8th grade too, didn't he?
Yeah.
Oh, I think it's the hardest challenge 7th and 8th graders are. They're, yeah.
Yeah, Lisa Buller too. You guys that do the lower grades, I bow to you, because I'm high school. I can teach 7th and 8th, but...
Yeah, but they're harder. Once you get to 9th and 10th grade, they're a little easier, I think.
Yeah.
7th and 8th graders, that's a challenge.
Yeah.
Minus Aspen's the exception to that rule.
Well, Happy New Year again. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you next week.